thank you. Hi, everyone. Happy lunch hour. We'll go ahead and get started. Hopefully, you meant to come to the Water Provider Conservation Program meeting. If not, maybe try another room, but this one is for the North Fort Bend Water Authority. Uh, this is our fall meeting today, and during the lunch hour, we don't anticipate it taking a full hour, but if it does, great, and we will start here. Right now, everyone is muted, and again, that's on purpose. What we would like to do is go through the presentation first, and then at the end, if you have questions, raise your hand. We'll ask you to unmute, somehow get our attention, and we'll see you. And same with the chat. If you could refrain from using the chat in the beginning, only if it's pertinent for any technical questions like audio visual. And at the end, we'll go through any questions we have there. This meeting is being recorded, so we can use it later for YouTube purposes. And if anyone wants to recapture this, and we'll be sending a recording of this out after this. Okay.
Hold on, Whitney. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We have a couple of people that joined by phone number, just for purposes of the conservation program. If you wouldn't mind identifying yourself so we can make sure that your district gets credit for this.
Thank you. Could the person with I'm trying to see all the last digits, 7672, let us know who you are?
I have an 8372.
And who's this?
I'm Virginia Lester with Cornerstones Mud.
All right, Virginia, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Second time on the 7672. Okay. What about the 1980? Okay, if you could put it in the chat, and then if you're able to, if not, we'll come back to that at the end. Thank you, Joya. Was that all? I think that was all. Okay.
That's all I see.
All right, great. Thank you. So again, welcome. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Whitney Milberger, and I'm the Conservation and Communications Manager for the North Fort Bend Water Authority. I'm with BGE Engineering. And from our team today, we have from ABHR is Sandra Stain. She's NFBWA Legal. And from BGE, we have Matt Freilich. He's the program engineer, program manager for North Fort Bend, and Julia Frankovich, who's the authority engineer as well. And we have Miriam Valdez, who is our public relations coordinator. So what we're going to talk about today, the intentions are to talk about who, what, why we exist, who the North Fort Bend Water Authority is, and how we got to where we are in conservation. We're going to go over our current conservation program, which is why you're probably all here today. And we want to talk about 2022, a year not to forget. We all know it was hot. It was not a pretty year. We want to sort of let you see what was happening behind the scenes and what we were seeing from operator standpoint, engineering, supply, demand. And then we will talk about resources available to you. And then we will open it up for discussion. And then we'll be done.
I'm seeing a hand raised, Whitney, from Gina Williams. Did we want, oh, looks like it went away. Never mind.
Gina, you okay?
Hey, it's actually Rebecca Marcucci. I raised my hand. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just had to say thank you to Infomark for being speedy and fast and thinking like professionals that the operators are. I think it saved us a lot of headache on Sunday when we had that City of Houston boil water notice. So I just wanted to say kudos before we started. Thanks for letting me do that.
It absolutely did. Thanks, Rebecca. They did a great job.
I like that kind of stuff. Y'all can make like comments that are positive throughout this whole thing. So, no, thank you a lot, Rebecca. And we will definitely pass the message along. Okay, starting with NFBWA, we exist because of subsidence. And I do know a lot of y'all are aware of this, but we're going to dig into it a little bit deeper because it is so important. And we've learned that most residents have no clue what it is. So what subsidence is literally, it means the sinking of the ground. And so in the 1920s, when the oil and gas industry took off and the ship channel was broadening, a lot of people started to move here. And these people, they wanted water. And our only source of water was groundwater. With the more people using more water, our groundwater levels, they began to recede. Over here on the left, I'm not sure if you can see my cursor. I wanted to show you how areas near Galveston, they subsided, they sank around 10 feet. There's this community that you can sort of see a little bit of the writing here called Brownwood. That's sort of the one we talk about a lot because it has the biggest story of our area. And it was a small community of about 500 homes. And this is actually a picture of it on the bottom left. And throughout the years with hurricanes, flooding, in 1976, it finally just took its final blow. And the whole community ended up either having to be destroyed or the Army Corps bought it. And so what it is today is the Baytown Nature Center. So it's literally a community that was wiped out due to subsidence. So that happened over here in the Galveston area. And as you see us move out of that small circle, it's not as red, but it's still, you still do see levels all the way out to about a foot already in Fort Bend County. So we do know more people are moving all around this area. Again, they're going to need water. So that's why we are where we are in subsidence. But why do we ultimately care also, like right now, this day and age in this area? Flooding. We are very prone to flooding in this area. We have these severe weather patterns that are just becoming more and more common. And so that's why in our area, we really want to stress about, yes, you may not see the land sinking, but we really already are seeing the effects of what it's done to our area. And right here, Julia made a really cool animation, and she's going to tell you about sort of literally how subsidence works. I'm excited about this. Thank you, Julia.
Sure. It's a simplified view of what subsidence is, just to visualize it, so you can better communicate that to your residents. So right now, what we're seeing is just simplified cross section of the earth. We have the ground surface. Underneath that, we have soil, and then we also have saturated soil. And that's also known as groundwater. Where we change from soil to saturated soil is typically what we call the groundwater level. And then we also have the white rectangle there is showing a groundwater well, which is where we take water from underground and pump it to the surface to use. So what exactly is groundwater? It's really simply water that fills the open spaces in underground soil. So if we zoom in to the saturated zone there, we're going to see intermixed soil particles. So in Houston, that's primarily clays and silts, which are very tiny, tiny soil particles. And that's primarily why Houston has such a subsidence issue, because of these types of soils as our groundwater. And in between those soil particles, there's, it's called the pore space, and that's where water is located. And you can kind of think about this like how water fills up a kitchen sponge, right? You have your sponge and then you have all these spaces. So when it's saturated, there's water in there that you can squeeze out. So if we look at a water supply system, again, very simplified here, we're pumping water out of the ground into our communities for them to use. And so when the amount of water that we're using in our communities is less than or equal to the amount of water that's going into our groundwater, things are stable. It's a happy place, you know, we're not impacting our aquifers. But let's say that we start increasing our water consumption. So there's development or it's a dry period and every person is just using more water. Then we're going to start to see some effects of that. So as we start pumping out too much water, the groundwater level can lower. And when that happens in our saturated zone, we lose that water. And it actually causes those soil particles to get closer together and physically compact, which reduces the amount of space that water can be stored. And this is permanent. So subsidence is not something that can be fully reversed. And so even if the water rises again, which it will, you're still going to lose out on some of that storage capacity, and it can threaten our future water supplies. And what's going to happen there is when we've taken that out, our soil has compacted, the land actually will subside and get lower than it previously was.
So that was fun. And so with that, Joya, thank you. This was the legislature saw this happening, and so they had to take action. So in 1975, the legislature created the Harris-Galveston Subsidence District. They saw this trend of subsidence continuing out. So in 1989, the creation of the Fort Bend Subsidence District came. In 2003, the Subsidence District adopted the 2003 regulatory plan, which, and then 2005, the creation of the North Fort Bend Water Authority was created. The legislature determined the North Fort Bend Water Authority's boundaries. Requests to be excluded from the boundaries had to be submitted no later than the 120th day after the effective date of the act. And here is a map of Fort Bend Subsidence District, and we are purple, we are Area A. And those groundwater reduction requirements state that we had to have a submission of groundwater reduction plan by 2008. We had to have a 30% reduction in groundwater usage by 2014, which was timely met. And now we have a 60% reduction by 2027. If you recall, this is say 2025. That is no longer the case. It has been pushed back 2 years. So there's us, the North Fort Bend Water Authority. Our mission, our tagline is provide, conserve, and educate. We are here to provide a plentiful supply of clean water from multiple sources for our families now and for the future. To conserve our groundwater and surface water supplies to provide for tomorrow's water needs. And to educate people on the value of water, where our water comes from, and the importance of protecting this vital resource. Conservation, which is huge to the North Fort Bend. In 2006, the board of directors said, let's start with this, let's go. So started doing public outreach, educating people the importance of water conservation. From there, it went into the schools. And then the creation of our mobile learning lab came. And if you haven't seen it before, it's pretty cool. It's a lab on wheels. We can bring it to any community events. And it has all different sectors of water inside of it, the aquifers, the lakes of Texas. It teaches about the water cycle, rainwater harvesting, and gives tips on water conservation. And then in 2011, the Wise Guys program started. This is where we partner with different MUDs or GRP participants. And through a cost share agreement, we each pay to have a licensed irrigator go to residents' houses and to do inspections of their sprinkler systems. Then came the creation of Larry the Talking Sprinkler, our beloved mascot. And with that, our board then, and yes, wanted to find a way to incentivize our GRP districts for doing something. So the creation of Larry's Toolbox came about, and that was our first conservation program designed to incentivize MUDs. Right around the same time, our alternative water program, the reuse program, began. Then we signed up for Water My Yard, where people will get notifications saying this is how much water you need this week for your lawn. And then we started the residential rebate program. We took Larry, after 5 years of doing Larry's Toolbox, which began in 2016, we knew it was time to look at all the initiatives we were offering, get feedback from the community, revise and revamp. And so this was the first program year in 2022 where it became the new program, which is called the Water Provider Conservation Program. And the main goals of the program that we began this year was really to increase board of director, city council member involvement. What we saw happening in this program for the years since it started was there was always usually one key person, usually the operator, who was the only one in the know about what was really going on with the conservation program. We would still find that there were directors who had no clue that they were even in a conservation program. And our whole purpose of trying to educate this is we are aware that we can't educate every resident in North Fort Bend, and our customers are our GRP participants. And so it's the hopes that we educate our customers, which are you all. And from there, in your local level, you're then able to educate residents. We have social media, we have the website, we have a lot of resources that are all for the public, but it takes more than one way. At a more of a local level, we know if there's a director talking to a resident, it's going to make such a big difference instead of it coming from a regional level. We, of course, wanted to increase our water saving potential. And the third one goes along with the first, keep increasing that community awareness. What was the same when we modified it from Larry's Toolbox to Water Provider Program? It's still voluntary. It is your choice if you want to be a part of it. The North Fort Bend Water Authority staff is still available to help, and the incentivized rate remains the same, which is 10 cents per 1,000 gallons upon successful completion. The difference is in the program, or of course the program name, the interest form due dates. Before, you had to let the authority know by December 31st if you were going to be in the next year's program. That's no longer the case. You have until March. The initiative durations have changed, and we no longer have a point system. We used to have it where you had to get 9 points to be successful in this program. The way it's been modified is we are trying to give our participants more of the lead on how they want to administer, how they want to do their program, come up with a collaborative effort on their own with resources that we can help administer on how to make their own program successful. We don't want to be in charge of the whole thing. We started doing this in charge was probably the bad word, sorry. But we started this in 2006. And so we're hopeful to let more of the getting down to the community level, that there will be more of a take charge and go with it. To be in this program, there are 3 core initiatives that have to be done to even be considered to be in the program. And that is the formation of a conservation committee, which you are on, I am assuming, if you're here or not an operator or not with North Fort Bend, to continue sending out high water user notifications. And with those, you determine your threshold on what you want, when you want to send those out and to whom. But that has to be a committee decision. And to also disseminate conservation information as well. It used to be just 4 simple messages that would be on the customer bills, but now in a little bit, our Joy is going to show you how there's lots of other methods that you can send out information, especially with today's social world and websites and all that. So those 3 are just the core, just to be in the program. From then, you can either, I'm not going to go through each of these at length, but you could pick 3 from the left side, or you could pick a more stringent initiative on the right side. So successful in 3 of either the rebate, a smart meter portal, Wise Guys, completing an integrated water management plan, ET weather station, or a community event. If you did 3 of those and the core initiatives, you're good. You've been successful. Or if you did the core initiatives and either water budgets, smart meter installation, or advanced irrigation scheduling, and you complete that successfully, then you have succeeded in the program. We are in the process of finalizing the 2023 program right now. It is almost going to be this exact same. We just did a huge revamp this past year. We don't want to make big changes. It's actually been a very good year. There was some struggles in the beginning, but as most of us have come to realize, change is not easy. After getting it under our belts the first couple of months, it actually is a lot easier. It flows a lot for our customers and for us, because I think now there is becoming an understanding that you do it at your own pace. So the goals for this year are going to be, or 2023, is to still increase council conservation committee involvement, to increase water saving, and the same with community awareness. The only item that's going to be new is we're going to, on the a la carte, we're going to encourage participants, make your own initiatives. We had a district this year that did a pilot program. It was innovative thinking on their part of, hey, here's something we've heard of, let's give it a try and see if it works. So we said, run with it. And that's our hopes, is that if you in your district, mud city, if you come up with an idea like, hey, this could be something cool, let's see how this goes, we're all ears, because that's what we're hoping for. Like I said, for you to take this program and make it yours, and we're here to assist. Ooh, so that was fun. So the conservation program stuff is fun. And now Julia is going to talk to you about the year of 2022. Go ahead.
Yeah, 2022 was really exceptional. I mean, we all lived through it. It was really hot with not a lot of rain during the summer. And so we wanted to give you a recap of that, show you kind of how water usage was different from what we expected, and then how that affects MUDS and North Fort Bend. So in July of this year, 97% of Texas was in drought conditions. You can see on that map there, everywhere is very red. That is not great. And these extreme weather conditions really led to extreme water demands. For reference, on average month for North Fort Bend is about 393 gallons per connection per day. And when I say a connection here, I mean like a single family residential home. July 2022 almost doubled that. So we were looking at 795 gallons per connection. And we think primarily that is due to outdoor water usage, right? It's dry, it's hot, people are increasing their irrigation, they have pools, they're filling their pools more, it's evaporating. So a lot of that is strictly outdoor usage. So on the screen here, I'm showing a graph. This is something that we share with the North Fort Bend board once a month, and it's an overview of projected water demands and then actual water usage. So on the x-axis, we're showing total water demand for the month in million gallons. And then the colors represent the different types of water. Light blue is actual groundwater withdrawn. Dark blue is surface water delivered. And then purple is our favorite. I'm going to give a plug out to reuse right now. If your district doesn't have a reuse system and you're interested in hearing more about them, or having North Fort Bend come and talk to you about our program, we would love to come talk to you. We have a great incentive program to help pay for your system by offering a credit. And in addition, all of that water used by a reuse system doesn't have to pay a North Fort Bend fee at all. So it's a really great monetary incentive. And also you're really helping your water system by being able to use that water for like HOA irrigation, which is a really big water consumer, especially in the summer months. And that's my plug. I'll go back to the data now. But you can see on this graph just crazy differences there between what we projected and what actually happened. So the black line is showing that projected usage. And in July, you can see that we projected about 1.7 billion gallons of water to be used for all of North Fort Bend. And we actually used more than 2.5 billion gallons in that 1 month. So almost a billion gallon difference. That's about, let's see, it's almost what we were at in July 2011, which if y'all remember that drought back then, it was really surprising to us that we got to these levels. And it actually, on North Fort Bend's end, we made a permit amendment to our groundwater permit with the subsidence district to increase our water amount because we were getting close to our permitted withdrawal amount. And so based on that, I want to tell a story about a Houston mud to really bring this back home. We have high water usage, but what does that actually mean? How does it impact your water facilities? Some of you are probably very familiar with how it impacts your water facilities, but I'm going to tell this mud story. They're in Houston, it's not in North Fort Bend, but they have 5 water plants, 6 water wells, and over 8,000 connections. And in July of 2022, they used 210 million gallons of water for their district, which is about 25,000 gallons of water per home in a month. And so looking at that from an operator's perspective, these operators are on the ground at 3 a.m. at these water plants preparing for the day. When those HOA irrigation users kick on around 4, at the plants, what happens is your ground storage tanks begin to decline in water level. And the whole day becomes this balancing act between your water supply and your water demand. And so in a lot of cases, it's just this full event of monitoring your plants all day long, trying to keep up with it. In this district, there are 6 water wells. On average in July, we're running about 21 hours of the day. And that's all of their wells running that long out of 24 hours. And they had a little over 800 gallons per connection per day. And what's the consequence of this? We just did a well production report for this district. And cumulatively, they lost 880 gallons per minute of well capacity since 2013, with a lot of that happening in the past year. The water level in their wells dropped 42 to 75 feet, which is very significant since 2013. And one thing that happened to them, unfortunately, was in October, they had catastrophic well failure of one of their water wells. And what they're in the process of doing right now is lowering that pump. They have to lower the pump so the well is going to keep working, and they have to replace it because of the well failure. And the big question is, how does this happen? So going back to our subsidence slide, we have this water system. They're using water. They're using a lot of water, and it's going to lower that water elevation. A few things are happening here. As that water level lowers, you actually have to use more power for your pump to get the water to the surface, right? You have to raise that water level 40 to 75 feet higher. So you're losing well capacity as a result of that. And like I said, with this district, they ended up having to lower their pump. And if that doesn't work for you, I guess you don't have the space in your well, you may have to go drill another well, drill a deeper well. Not only is that very, very expensive, as I'm sure you're all aware, as we get lower in our water table in Houston, the water quality is worse. It's saltier water and it tends to have more treatment requirements. So it's a very expensive thing and it's just not sustainable. And now that we talked about how this can affect the mud, I want to walk through what this looks like on North Fort Bend's end. So the primary reason North Fort Bend exists is to prevent subsidence. And we do that by providing an alternative water supply. So right now, Mud-Use have their groundwater supply and North Fort Bend provides surface water to our muds and our cities. And as more communities are developing, I mean, y'all know in Fort Bend County, it just isn't stopping. We have a ton of development happening on our western side. And as more people are moving to our area, they're gonna need more water. And as we just saw, that's just not sustainable in Houston. We can't keep pulling more water out and still maintain our groundwater supplies. So currently North Fort Bend has 19.5 million gallons per day of surface water available, and we have 35 connections. I think it's 24 muds and cities, but I could be wrong on that number. So we're delivering water to people every day. And this on the screen here, I'm showing Dale Clayton. He's North Fort Bend's operator at the Bel Air pump station. And from this pump station, we receive water from the city of Houston and pump it out to all of the muds. And in the middle of summer, this is a crazy job. Just like on the mud level, Dale and his team are monitoring the site 24 hours a day, making sure that the muds are getting the water that they need and that y'all can reach the demand. And we spoke with Dale before this to get his thoughts on what his summer days are like. And his takeaway was that HOA watering is really key here. That's beginning in the early morning hours. They're using a lot of water to irrigate, and it's right before all of the residents start waking up and using water on their homes. So it's this compounding effect of high water usage, and then it just starts the day off with, trying to keep up with that demand. Dale said he receives about 8 to 10 calls on average from all the muds across North Fort Bend about the water supply. And he does this balancing act, trying to make sure everyone's getting the water that they need. And North Fort Bend currently is working to get additional water. We have a ton of huge projects going on in partnership with other water authorities in the Houston area, as well as the city of Houston, trying to get that additional surface water supply to you guys so that we can deliver it to more people. And we think that this lower water usage period is a really great time to talk about opportunities to prepare for the summer next year and the next high water usage period, because we know it's going to come. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. And we really think that the best way to deal with this is education, and that's education of residents and education of HOAs. We receive so many emails during the year of people that are just really confused about water usage, how much water they're using. They're kind of in disbelief that their water bill is as high as it is. So you can see on the screen here, these are real emails we received this summer. People from 15,000 gallons all the way up to 40,000 gallons in a month. And I've not in North Fort Bend, but in another district, I've seen people higher than 100,000 gallons a month for one home. So really, there's a broad spectrum of water usage here. And we think that people just don't understand what is normal. You know, a lot of us like to think, oh, I'm average, like I'm using an average amount of water, maybe a little bit less than average. The average American family uses about 10,000 gallons of water a month. In our area, that's going to be higher because we have these large suburban homes with large lawns that are watered. But really, a lot of people in our area are using more water than an average or typical home in America. And we think that people just aren't aware of how that's happening. And a lot of it is happening with outdoor water usage. So an average residential sprinkler system uses between 12 and 30 gallons of water per minute. So if you have someone in the middle of summer that turns on their sprinkler for half an hour a day, that's 11 to 27,000 gallons of water per month that can be added to their water bill without really trying that hard. So again, we think that this education and awareness of how to reduce usage, how to only use what you need, not turning on your sprinkler daily because it's hot outside, and really monitoring, how can I keep my plants healthy, but also not use more than you need.
Yeah, and plants, they don't like being watered every day. Plants do better when they're watered infrequently and deeper. So there's a lot of methods that we're able to teach residents to actually give them better quality plants. And it's not, if you give water to a plant at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, unless you're just trying to get water on just a small little annual at the end of an esplanade, it's not going to do anything. It's usually going to get lost directly to evaporation. It's not going to make it down to the soil where that water is actually needed so plants can uptake it. So taking everything Julia just said back to the Water Conservation Provider Program, and just in general other resources available if you're not in the program, there's 2 specific initiatives that we encourage you to start looking at if you don't already, in the winter and in the spring, in a way to be proactive instead of what we usually see. And it wasn't just this summer. This summer was, of course, the extreme with the phone calls. We have a phone number now. It's not Whitney Milberger, and it's an actual phone line dedicated for NFBWA. All that's on the website. But to go ahead and start doing things to be proactive rather than reactive when people start getting these water bills. One of those is the Wise Guys program. That's that I talked about it in the very beginning, where if you have a cost share agreement with the authority, person signs up online, licensed irrigator comes out, does a walkthrough of someone with their system and identifies where there's issues, looks at their programming on their controller and makes recommendations. The clocks, they're not designed to be easy, the sprinkler controllers. There are, even on the easiest one, which is a Hunter Pro C, a lot of people have those. It's there's still a default where if something happens to that battery, it's going to default run for over 8 hours, because that's its way of triggering to let you know there's a problem, which makes no sense. But there's all these little tricks that an irrigator can help you learn with the controllers and having rain sensors, and ways to prevent irrigation from happening when it's not needed. If you don't have a Wise Guys contract, Wise Guys program, or if your district doesn't have a lot of residential irrigation systems, we have a lot of resources on our website that still teach when to water, how to water. and different plant water requirements. Also with the meters, we have, we do a lot with smart meters in our conservation program. Before the summer hits, starting to make sure, if you do have smart meters, that people are aware that they can do leak detection, that there is customer portals. There is a system where they can set a threshold. If it goes over, let's say 11,000 gallons a month, they get a notification. So they can already have those things set up before heat comes. If you don't have smart meters, which a lot of districts still do not, it is still okay if your district's okay with it, but people can manually read their own meter. And I know little operators may cringe when I say this, so again, to each their own. But there on our website, we offer videos of how to manually read your meter. Turn off all the water in the house. If that red dial is spinning, there's water running somewhere, and that means you probably have a leak. Having the toilet bowl leak detectors, little dye tablets. So there's measures you could take beforehand. Right now, perfect timing to go ahead and educate your residents to go ahead and winterize your system, because supplemental water should no longer be needed until at least March, April. And those resources are on our website. And then in just a second, Joy is going to go through other places where you can find those, and if you could, I think that's Rebecca. Can you give us just a couple minutes, or go ahead?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, let me finish this one slide, and then, well, we have a couple more slides, and then we'll save questions till the end. This one really hits home on what Joya was just talking about. And I'm not saying they're bad or anything with this, but it generally is the common space irrigation, the HOAs, the mud owned meters, or the HOAs that are using a lot of this water. I get it. Don't get me wrong. If I'm going to move somewhere, I'm looking for luster of greenery and happiness and nature play, because that's attractive. So I get it. We want to have our plant material alive. We want to have it looking healthy. But in my previous life, meaning before coming North Fort Bend, we did a study on one of our large developments here in the authority, and we were using 60% more water than we needed on a whole master plan community. Did a study where we cut it back to what the plant material actually needed, so 60% less. And would you believe it was greener? It was healthier. What does that mean for long-term maintenance and management? It means less weeds. It means less pest problems. And so overall, you can mow less. All these things are going to change if you're giving it the right amount of water, because what we generally see is plants are waterlogged. There's no oxygen in the soil because we're watering too much. It can look exactly the same when you look at plants, and it looks a lot alike, and they're stressed. So stress looks like stress. So in the heat of the summer, we're automatically going to assume it needs more water. Generally, it's the opposite. So there are things that districts can do, and this is part of our pick one, because this is the low hanging fruit here. This is like where the big savings are. Irrigation auditing, and budgeting, seeing how much your landscape actually needs on a larger scale, and then allocating the water based on weather patterns, your soils, and everything. And so we're really happy to talk to anyone about this if you want to consider looking at doing this for your mud meters or for your HOA. And again, we'll come to questions at the end, but right now I want to turn it over to Joy Bass. There you are. Hey, and she's going to tell you about the cool resources that we have available to you. So I'm going to go on mute. Hey, Joy.
Great. Hi, I'm Joy Bass, and I work with the NFBWA in the capacity of working with Mighty Citizen, who helps out with their public communications. And so we worked really closely with the NFBWA to put together this toolkit for water providers. And it really came out of feedback from you all directly, right? Like we heard directly from directors that they weren't sure how to communicate with their audiences. Residents had tons of questions that they weren't sure how to answer. And so we put this together so that you would have one place where you can go whenever you need to communicate with residents and you need a little bit more clarification. That's what this toolkit is for. So it's just to help to educate the public about the NFBWA and the mission. You can put the next slide. So first, you'll see in the first section here, there's just some general information about the NFBWA and how to find them online. So the website's there. They have a Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn pages that residents can connect to. And then, here are some important website links. So there's a lot of information on the website to help residents really understand what subsidence is, why we should be conserving water. And we wanted to break it down here for you and include the links so you can go directly to them. So you'll see here links about the feet, which we know is probably the #1 question that you're getting, links about subsidence, water saving tips, native plants. So all those things that you hear about most frequently, those links are on this page. You can share these links with the public. You can click on them yourself. It just kind of gives you the background that you need to kind of respond to those resident concerns. And Whitney's talked a lot today about the water conservation program. The water provider conservation program, as she said, is a great way to earn rebates on your water usage fees. And so if you are interested in joining the program and you're in the toolkit, you just click that button right at the bottom, join the program. It'll take you to the webpage to help you understand how to sign up and to kind of go over what Whitney has already talked about today, which is like the pick 1 or pick 3. So now I'll jump into some website copy. And here's a guideline for this section. This is just to add some information about the NFBWA to your website. We know that residents are going to websites to look for information, particularly on those really high usage months. So for instance, in July, the NFBWA's website users shot up to over 3,700 people came there in 1 month looking for information about trying to figure out why their fee was so high. And that's actually more than double what they normally would see in a month. So we wanted to give you some short and long form copy that you could use on your website to just explain what the NFBWA is and what they do. So here you go. This can just easily be very copied and pasted or adjusted for you, depending on how your website is. But basically, it's just a long and a short form version. They're not to be used together because they're a little bit redundant, but really, depending on the space of your website, just explains that what they do, why they exist. A lot of residents seem a little confused about this because you have a MUD, what's the NFBWA there for? And here's your explanations to be able to share with them. And we've also included some digital content here for you. So the guidelines for this section is all of these graphics are approved, copied, branded, ready to go. All you have to do is copy and paste them. You can download the graphics by clicking this link here. These are all really high fidelity quality versions of the graphics. So your social media folks, your communication folks will be happy to be able to just download those straight from Dropbox and put them up as they are. The first one here is just about the NFBWA. So again, you can use this on social media. You could use this in emails or newsletters. This copy and in these graphics are all ready to go in that way. There's links here so people can get more information directly from the NFBWA. And then you'll see a little hashtag there in case you are using this on social media, just so that people can know how to find more information. The next one here, we see our lovely Whitney here representing the water force. And so we really worked in 2022 to put a human face to the NFBWA, and that Whitney is really our leader there, and just being that upfront person who's answering questions. So feel free to use this image as well as this content and hashtag to help your audience learn a little bit more about why we're here. And then infrastructure. So we know that the majority of their fees go to infrastructure projects. And this is a little bit confusing for folks because they don't really understand the importance of it. So we are really pushing to make sure that as part of our education campaign, we're helping people understand why. And so you'll see here the content is about the growth of the area, why we need these projects to keep clean water flowing. And again, a really compelling photo of what that infrastructure looks like for you to have. And Wise Guys, Whitney talked a little bit about this, but this is a great program that folks can sign up for. If you're in the conservation program, this goes towards your pick 3, I believe. And so you can use this to help your residents understand how to sign up. And same for Water My Yard, right? So overwatering, as Whitney has said, is an issue across the board, and it's something that we've been trying to educate folks on. So getting that real good data for your residents, this is a good way to just get them to understand how they can get really specialized, customized tips. And then bill inserts. So I know I've heard from some folks here on this call and other calls that they don't feel like their residents are on social media or on digital platforms in that way. And, if there is that concern, please know that when we look at the data from the NFBWA's digital communications, the majority of the folks who are consuming it are over 50. So don't feel like you're leaving out anyone by using digital means, but we wanted to make sure that we could give you some electronic and physical water bill inserts to use as well. So you can download them here. And here's a couple just to give you some examples. The rebate program, helping folks get paid to upgrade when they're getting new appliances. And messages are included here, right? So signing up for Wise Guys, and here is an insert that you can download and include in your water bills, or whether it's digital or on paper. And then public outreach. So we talked a little bit about this, but residents have questions, who we are, what we do. And the directors have told us we don't always know how to answer questions because some of these things are really big and confusing. And subsidence is like, how do you explain subsidence in 1 or 2 sentences? Well, we put together some talking points for you to help you do that. And so using this section, you will find links to talking points. If you can go to the next slide. And so you can just download them here. These are basically just a list of the most frequently asked questions and how you should answer them. And you see that little link there. It goes to a document that you'll be able to download and use with the residents. And then the Learning Lab, which I know Whitney talked about a little bit earlier, has the simulator, has educational videos. You guys know your community better than we do. And so when there are community events, neighborhood block parties, it's great to invite this Learning Lab to your next community event. And using that link right here on this page, you can request the Learning Lab and have them come out. And then the contact page. So we don't expect you to be able to answer everything about the NFBWA. We know that there's always going to be some questions that, you need to refer folks to the NFBWA directly. That link right there will take them directly to the Contact Us page. Those emails are checked regularly by the NFBWA, and they do respond to them. So if there's something that is complicated or seems a little bit more specific to the NFBWA, not necessarily your MUD or city, just send them there and then they'll get a response. Right, so that's the Water Provider Toolkit. Again, that's available for download now. It's on the website. And I'll just turn it back over to Whitney to finish this up.
Thank you, Joy. You always explain that so much better than I know I could. Thank you for coming again. So to conclude this, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. First, create a plan. Whenever it comes to the conservation program, beginning of the year, go ahead and say, do we want to do it or no? We'll have a webinar that goes over what it entails, again, the full thing more in detail. Gain an understanding about what it's about. Get the community involved. Again, we always hear reactive. It'd be best if we could be proactive. It will help y'all hear about it. It'll help operations. It'll help if there's a better understanding in the community about what NFBWA is, how to conserve water for generations to come. Have a successful year. get creative with what your program is. And then after that, you'll start receiving the 10 cent per 1,000 gallons on your, as a credit the next year. And that is all we have for you today. And I want to thank you again, North Fort Bend team and Joy, part of the North Fort Bend team, for coming. And we will open it up. I'll stop doing screen share. We will open it now for Q&A. And I know Rebecca had her hand up earlier. Who's posing as
Thanks,
Gina?
Whitney. Yeah, right. Thanks, Whitney, Julia, Joy, y'all were great. I think you answered it, but I wanted just to confirm the PSAs, the videos and things like that you have on your site. So districts can use all of those on their websites, and can we operators use those as well on our websites? Do we need to get prior approval?
No, they are there. That is why they're made. We just ask that you link from our site, because we will have the, you know what I mean? Like, so embed the link and
Yes.
so it's obtained from our site. All of it is on our YouTube channel. So I think it's a good idea to link to our YouTube channel, because there's infrastructure videos and all sorts of stuff on there.
So I'm going to go out here on a limb a little bit. At AWBD, we're talking about doing some PSAs as well. For instance, about wipes, right? Which has nothing to do with the North Fort Bend Water Authority per se. If you are amenable to it, and if AWBD wants as well, could we use it on the AWBD website? Again, it's kind of, a bigger group of members.
I think that we'd be happy to be a resource on showing educational opportunities. Of course, want to run that by the whole team before and the board. But yeah, I mean, this is public information as it is, and so we're happy to assist as we can. But I can't be the final say. But
Okay, that would be great if you could do that. That would be terrific.
Yeah.
And thank y'all again so much for your time.
Thank you. And you could come on with your name. We welcome you anytime. Anyone else have any questions?
Yes.
There's one in the chat box.
Okay, well, I'll go to the chat just a minute. Mr. Thomas, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. There was a recent article in the Katy Impact newspaper about increased subsidence right in the Katy area, which I haven't seen reported much before, and I just wonder if that has any impact on the North Fort Bend or the Galveston Katy subsidence district or whatever the
So
association is.
what that does show, in a way, it's a success story for North Fort Bend, because for our, and not saying anything negative about Katy, but it does show our area in North Fort Bend, it hasn't received as much. In the areas where there is no regional water authority combating subsidence, you do continue to see the land sink more.
Well, to expand on that, Whitney, too. So City of Katy does not yet have a surface water supply. It's in the works. North Fort Bend, like Whitney was saying, we do not, Katy is not in North Fort Bend's groundwater reduction plan. They're in the West Harris County one. My understanding is that West Harris County is working to provide them surface water, but yes, you're absolutely correct. That is a hot spot for subsidence right now because they're using so much water. And for North Fort Bend, I mentioned we're working on the infrastructure to supply more surface water to more communities in our area. The next one we're building is going up to the Cinco area, which is north and closer to Katy. So we're hoping maybe some of that supply up north will help those areas as well. But those are not the areas that are currently in the hotspot.
What Joya said, never listen to me when it comes to technical data. I could talk the hippie stuff all day. Okay, I see Dennis, I see your question on the link. There's not one, but I think it's a great idea. We add one because we can just directly link to the subsidence district because they show the stats on that. They have an interactive map.
And they just issued a really interesting report for anyone who wants to really get into the weeds and is interested in this. We can definitely send that out to this group, but it's really interesting data, pretty granular.
Okay. Hold on real quick, Tony. Let me see. I have a couple. Carrie, I saw your hand just raised. Are you asking? And hey, Carrie, good to see you. See your name. Are you still there? Yes. Was your question about smart meters and what the smallest amount of water that can be detected? I am assuming so, and I'm going to defer that
Yeah,
to somebody
if
else.
that's your question, we don't know. I mean, it probably depends on your meter and your system. I'm not sure what yours would detect or not detect. But if you reach out to your operator, they should be able to give you information on your specific meter and help you out. But I do know you can sign up for the leak alerts, so they'll know if your water is continuously running.
Okay, yes, and hi, Tony, Mr. Custer, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you.
Hey.
In the early part of the talk, you talked about targets to reduce groundwater pumping, is what I understood. 30% that we've already passed, and 60% that we're trying to reach for 2027. And my question is, in light of all of the growth in the South Katy Fulshear area, are these targets based on some kind of original permanent goal, or are these a moving target as development and growth increase, that number keeps getting bigger also?
I see Matt.
Yeah, I saw him pop on.
Come
I
on,
did. I
Matt.
turned my camera on. I was going to let you guys field this
Oh,
one.
Okay.
Great question, Tony. The original conversion requirements, there was an analysis, and it was kind of the best educated guess at that time based on populations and where they thought things were heading. Subsidence District is currently in the process of reviewing their regulatory plan, so that 30 and 60 for our area, as well as that unregulated area that was on the map that Whitney showed earlier, Area B. They're taking a look at all of that. Does the 60 really need to go up to 80, or does it even need to be 60, or kind of that? They're looking at all the scenarios based on more current population stuff. I mean, we've got another 10 years of data to look at, plus the census stuff coming in, and so that's being evaluated. I think what's going to come out of it is a more detailed and more precise look. At the beginning, it was, like I said, it was the best guess based on the information available at that time. But they do try and fix it. Obviously, we've been planning and working at meeting those goals for the better part of a decade now. And so it can't be a moving target. And so they want to nail it down as best they can, knowing that there's going to be somewhat of a range, but that's in the process right now. And as we hear more from Subsidence District, we'll certainly be passing it on to all of our customers, so they're aware.
thank you. Tony, let us know again if you have a follow-up. I see Harry has raised his hand. Mr. Hernandez?
Yes, so given that population growth is the major contributor to subsidence, do we make, or is there any action movement that's being taken to almost rein that in? It seems that the conservation efforts that we're making to conserve water are more than offset by the growth that we're currently going through, and will probably continue long after I'm gone.
So to answer that question, there's not really a curb on development happening. I think that's covered under a lot of regulations and nothing really to do with the water supply. But in addition to conservation, which is a really important aspect of our water supply strategy, a big focus of preventing subsidence is we have to have another source of water. Groundwater isn't going to cut it, even for the current population that's there. And so that's where North Fort Bend comes in and how we're bringing surface water to the area. So that's currently scheduled to be done in 2026. So we'll be there to meet that need. So for your area, don't worry. But no, there's not currently any delay in development.
Thank you.
I didn't think we were going to make it to the whole hour. We could keep going. Anyone else? Anyone? Well, hopefully you know where to find us. NFBWA.com. Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. Please reach out. We have the general email for any questions, and we'll make sure it gets to the right person. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and call it a day. Thanks for spending your lunch break with us, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks everyone for joining us.